Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bedomy, and this is Blood Bowl 2, Legendary Edition. The complete, the complete game of Blood Bowl 2 that was released in 2015, that was developed by Cyanide Studios and published by Focus Home Interactive. And honestly, it's one of the funnier turn-based strategy games set in the Warhammer universe. And I'll show you a bit more about it momentarily, but first things first, let's go into the game itself and demonstrate why not only me, but a lot of people love this game. Oops, sorry.
The sun is shining, birds are singing, and you are on Cabal Vision HD.
Yeah, that's pretty much sums it up. It's a full-blown fantasy parody of American football. It's in the Warhammer universe. If I only had to describe the game in one sentence, that's what Blood Bowl is. A full-blown American football set in Warhammer fantasy universe. And more or less you'd be... Well, people would probably get within a couple of seconds after you said it. But in reality, it's a turn-based strategy game, as I already mentioned, which takes you, your team, and the opposing team while you fight off against opposing team. And I'm screwing this up so much that I'm not even. I do apologize. It's the middle of the night, and this is my 5th time trying to record this, so I'm kind of going crazy at this point. But as I was saying, it's a very interesting turn-based game. It's not combat-oriented, it's more sports-oriented, and I will demonstrate everything momentarily when we get to the gameplay itself. But first things first, let's take a look at the options menu as we always do.
Hey,
and
these Garbo technicians don't always get the preset right. The stupid kids. Go to the options menu to change your preferences. For every option you change, a goblin dies in painful penance. So feel free to go nuts.
But yeah, this is why I love this game. It has funny writing and funny voice acting from the commentators, which are the ogre Bob and the vampire Jim. They always have something funny to say to you, so take your time to listen to what they're saying. It gets repetitive after a while, but whenever you do something, those two will commentate over it to give you some of their more funnier opinions. So as you can see, we have the general options, which are basically choose your own camera preferences, role requirements, AI difficulty, controller type, and control mode. As well as if you want to play the cutscenes or no. I would recommend that you keep the cutscenes for everything, because there is some very decent animation in the game when it comes to certain actions. In graphical options, you can adjust your visual quality from high to low, as well as choose a resolution. And also, it allows you to enable spectator mode and grass effects to be activated, which is somewhat lackluster in my opinion.
Get bored, Jim. You know I have the attention span of a constipated snotling. When are we gonna get to see a game?
Okay, yeah, this is something I really have to do. I'm not deciding points in the game, but this is something I really have to talk against, because a good options menu allows you to adjust everything to your own preferences. For example, if I want to have better lighting, I can adjust it to my own personal preference and lower the texture quality, or vice versa. With this game, you only have 2 options: which resolution do you want, and which graphical preset do you want. That's kind of counterproductive, honestly. If I had a weaker GPU, I'd be kind of screwed. I'd have to play with lower quality, and that would affect either my FPS or my PC's overall performance. So I couldn't adjust the settings to my own personal preference, because I want to lower everything but the texture quality of the characters. I'm not allowed to do it. That's That's kind of stupid. But thankfully, the sound options do allow me to adjust everything to my own personal preference, from the music to commentator volume, and I keep going for visual effects, for sound effects volume as well. I can also choose if I want to play this on English, French, and that's about it. Cyanide is a Canadian studio, so they only acknowledge 2 languages. Typical French.
Have you looked at Facetune recently, Bob?
Anyway,
you have a fan club?
You can also activate subtitles and hide opponents' messages during the match.
From the air.
And there's also your character portrait. You can choose and adjust your personal password for your account. Yeah, I'm just gonna demonstrate this partially, but you can choose the skin for the bowl. I usually go for the classic bowl and go for the Bretonnian Knight portrait. But this is one interesting thing I have to admit to the game. It doesn't take into account who's on which PC or device you're playing. As long as you can log into the game with your own credentials, you can play on any device. So if I install this, if my friend installed Blood Bowl 2 on his PC and I came over, I could just sign up with my own account without any questions asked. This is somewhat troublesome if your account gets hacked, but it's also practical if you only have one piece, if you only have one account on one Steam account and you want to play with or against your friend or a brother who has on a different PC in the same building, for example, or one of you can just go into offline mode on Steam and then log into the game with his credentials, and then you can play like that. But I probably should have said that. But yeah, that's one way you can play the game for relatively cheap. A cheap way to just find a friend who plays on Steam,
trophy was forged
borrow his account, install it, and make your own account.
Beneath the blighted ziggurat,
it's interesting thing to do.
Many slaves died to create it, but then
so for
it
the
was
skills,
the lowest bid.
So for the skills menu, you can choose if you want certain skill checks to be passed automatically, or do you want to manually control what will happen if you're, for example, throwing a ball to another player? Do you want to personally throw the dice for this skill check, or do you want that to be resolved automatically? It's a really interesting system, all things considered. I didn't come across tentacles and fen just yet, but I did have a lot of tackles and break tackles, as well as passes and dodges so far. So that's an interesting. That's just some small trivia that I would recommend that you keep in mind. And finally, game controls, you can turn on Asus Aurora support, which I do not recommend because it kind of messes your control schemes for some weird reason. At least it does on my PC. It won't recognize the mouse and it won't recognize the controller either, so I kind of had to try to restart the game, and actually I had to reinstall the whole game and uninstall the game and delete the local files I had on it and just reinstall it altogether. So keep this
thirsty Bob.
Use this on your own.
Well, how about
at your own
refreshing
discretion.
glass?
And that's pretty much it for the options menu, all things considered. So let's hop into the gameplay itself. Into the gameplay itself. So as you can see, we have several versions of play. We have multiplayer, which is
if you want to rewatch the last match,
where you can watch other people playing or rewatch previous matches. You can play friendly matches against your friends online, or you can play in a online league or an offline league against other players. So for this, I'm gonna play a custom league I created for my own offline team, and I'm gonna use my own created team, all things considered. And whoops, that's not it. So let's see. Yeah, that's my offline league I can play in. I can set the league up to my own personal preferences, as you can clearly see here. I could choose the turn duration, enhancements, kickoff events, and whatnot. And that's something you could do. You can pretty much just set up your own leagues, whatever you want. And these are pretty decent for solo play and gives you a lot of options to develop your team into a powerful team that can be taken online to check your overall progress. Well, not only progress, but test your skills against other players. So let's not dilly-dally too much. Let's hop into the game itself.
The team knows its opponents. We can launch the game!
So as you can see, before every match starts, you have the option of purchasing some additional bonuses, such as cheerleader, well, beer cheer, Bloodweiser babes, which are those very attractive females that sell beverages and cheer people on. Extra rerolls if you screw something up. You can bribe the judges. You can hire a halfling or a hobbit, the chef, that will give you a couple of extra bonuses with food. Igor or Igor, depending on who you ask, as a very, very terrifying apothecary. But since we don't have the budget, we'll just go for as we are. Our enemy will do the same, and then it's up to the gameplay itself.
Are you ready, Bob?
I was born ready, Jim.
And yeah, now we have to wait for a bit, because the game has a long load time, and I'm pretty sure I've tried this on an SSD once. It didn't help at all. It's still going to take you a while before the game loads, so you will have to wait for quite a while.
Good day, sports fans.
There we go. The game is up.
Violence, action. We should get some today, with one team having an edge over their opponents, on parchment anyway.
Yeah. Let's try to let's skip a bit of these intro cinematics. They take a while, so I'm just gonna skip through some of them. But as you can see, the game is graphically and audibly very well made. I mean, the grass details
to inflict long-term injuries. The undead are the kings of regeneration.
And yes, as you can see, their overall visual presentation of the game is superb. A lot of attention to detail has been put into place, and a lot of people are enjoying the gameplay as it is, as you can probably see. And same goes for the audio effects as well. I am enjoying. I really do like listening to the. I really like listening to the game sound effects and the voice lines that the commentators present, that the commentators give off, as well as the actual noises certain characters make when they're fighting. It's a well polished, all things considered, when it comes to visual and audio presentation, as you'll see momentarily. But there are some things that you probably could have noticed so far. The game does have a problem with certain control inputs. I had to double click or triple click certain characters in order to select them before I could. Damn it! Oh wait, that worked. I had some trouble setting up my characters into. And yeah, I screwed up. Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm trying to write down my time steps so I don't have to. So I can. I'm trying to stop my timestamps for the video, but writing down and watching the stopwatch simultaneously, it's kind of messed up. But yeah, this is the gameplay, as you can see.
Even to the best. Hang on, did you see that?
Ooh,
more pain for that team. Their pain is our gain.
This is the overall gameplay of Blood Bowl. your team of 11 players will set up on the field, and then you're kind of forced to, well, either kick the ball away to the opposing side, and then you have to fight off the opposing team in order to get the ball and score a touchdown on the enemy side of the field. But most of the time, depending on the races you're playing against or people you're playing against, it will go a bit differently. The undead, for example, are pretty slow and lack the nimbleness of Skaven or elves, for example. So therefore, their main game is their basic game plan is to stay alive for as long as possible and do damage. And when the team's numbers are lowered, they can grab the ball and just hop towards the end zone for a quick, well, not a quick, but a surefire win in the gameplay itself. So that's the theoretical part. But the problem with the game is the moment you start taking actions, your opponents will try to prevent
likes to be well assisted
you from taking those actions with whatever way they can. In most cases, it's all down to dice rolls, where you have to take a test to see if you can grab the ball or if you can do an action. As you can see, as you saw already, the action I just tried to take was either to get my own character knocked out or move the enemy character away from me. So I took the only available option that would result in my loss, and that freed up space for my werewolf so he can run along and grab the ball as quickly as possible. But the problem is there are several characters who are not covered by my own team and my teammates, so they can run freely and attack me whenever they choose to. And the thing is, when your characters are close to opposing characters, they will have certain actions available to them. For example, they can knock him out, they can get knocked out, they can both get knocked out, or they can just push the opponent away from the rest of their
Intimidation is the key.
As you saw, I tried to knock out this guy, that didn't work. And depending on how many teammates I have around, I can probably take a different sort of action to knock out the said opponent.
You won't leave him alone.
Unfortunately, my luck is non-existent, so I keep getting pushes. And the more teammates you have around your opponents, the easier it is to knock those guys out.
I gotta break in here.
But thankfully, we did get one knockout and one opponent injured. So even when when the time runs out, you can still get rid of your opponents during their movement phases with a well-placed tackle or a well-placed or a lucky trip. So, for example, that one opponent that tried to run away, my werewolf managed to knock him out while he was running, and that ended with the guy's injured. And as you can see, we've managed to injure two of them. What's weird here is that the undead are generally very robust. They can withstand a lot of abuse, and they can regenerate from injuries pretty quickly. So I do not need an apothecary as much as the next person. So I'm gonna do the following. I'm gonna knock out this guy out. Nice! Got lucky.
So early in the match? Hey,
I managed to knock out two of my opponents and injure two of them. And this gives me a lot of leeway for the next couple of movements. Good thing is the enemy just used his only blitz action, which allowed him to move and use his abilities. So for the time being, I'm safe from any oncoming attacks, but I do have to be careful. If an opponent's if my opponent's actions are, or if my action or my opponent's actions are unsuccessful, there will be a turnover. So if my character gets knocked out, during my turn, that will mean they'll automatically mean a turnover for me, and I can say goodbye to all of my actions from then on. As you can see, I have a free roam towards the ball here, but my chances of picking it up are not so good. So I'm gonna wait for the end of the turn before I start taking any serious actions. I'm gonna use the situation to get my knocked out teammates back on their feet, surround the opposing teammates, and prevent them from running away towards my werewolf.
Haha, here's some friends.
And let's see, I'm gonna get closer to the star player. These guys are, as you can see, they have a lot of additional perks that allow them to cause chaos all around the playing field. So my general idea here is to set up somewhere where I can do some damage and prevent the opponents from running away.
Up close and personal, Bob.
So that's everyone's set up more or less. And considering the thing that this guy is bigger and stronger than my zombie, I'm not gonna even attempt to attack him, because the red dice means whatever the dice lands on, the opponent will get to choose what's gonna happen to the character. And considering how unlucky I usually get, it will be a knockout for me, so I'm not gonna do anything. I'm just gonna check the situation here. As you can see, a single character against a Death Knight like this will only result in a red dice or a single white dice. But since I have teammates around, I get an additional dice for an action. But since we're more or less covering a lot of our opponents, I'm just going to do the following and try to
The player's taking
get
the
the
ball.
ball.
Wait!
Yes!
Happening? The ball is
Since
in
the
the
game-
end zone, and according
since
to
the game
Warhammer's
is
sacred text,
touchdown
we have a
based,
touchdown!
the game,
And it's
the turn ends
really
automatically
fast
when I
first
get a
touchdown. The
touchdown.
other team must wake up!
I got lucky here. I picked up the ball and automatically scored a touchdown, which gives my character experience as well as necessary respite, because when a touchdown is scored, the game does a quick check for every team, and if there are injured or
I
KO'd
wonder
players,
if
they will
I
be.
was KO'd, would I want to return to the game? Probably not.
Oh, nice.
Important thing, they gotta keep possession of the ball and not lose it. A strike back would be terrible.
Yes,
Has the
as I was
referee
saying.
finally noticed the team's secret weapon? Has the referee finally noticed the team's secret weapon?
Why am I repeating that? Anyway, as I was saying, the sad thing about the game is you only get experience for scoring a touchdown or causing injuries or killing the opposing players. So if your lineman, for example, or in this case a zombie, manages to intercept, well, if you manage to intercept a passing ball, that also gives you some minor level of experience, but the majority of your experience you'll get is through violent actions and touchdowns. So it's nice that the game has a balancing system, but it's kind of frustrating when you're trying to level up your team for anything bigger than offline matches. Because the more leveled up your characters are, the better they are at doing their job. So for example, this... Oh, for fuck's sake! For example, my ghouls here are my receivers and throwers, while the whites or Death Knights are my blitzers.
The attacker has an assist.
They take quick actions to do some serious damage, while the werewolves themselves are just gonna
Pride comes before the
fight
fall.
and score touchdowns. Mostly they're my primary receivers and ball catchers that are supposed to run around and score points as well as do damage.
It reminds me of the famous story of Nurgling
And yeah,
and
as
the
you can
Great
see, the
Unclean.
game has
But
takes
this time,
the
no miracle.
takes the rules of American football rather loosely on certain topics, as you saw earlier. Two opponents had weapons and special abilities that got them banned off the game after we scored. That usually shouldn't be the case, but the judge will turn a blind eye for at least
Will the
the
big
first
one
half time.
manage to lay out an opponent of half his strength?
Or at least,
Sometimes.
for at least halftime, or until you score your first touchdown. And as you can see, at the moment, I'm getting my ass handed to me by the opposing team. But thankfully, we should be in a position where we can retaliate. So let's not waste too much time and abuse the situation. Get our forces up. Considering that this guy is so, well, more or less so low, I can attempt to get close to this big guy and then knock him out with the giant, but as the situation is, I'd rather just have my squad mates surround and create a movement net that will prevent enemy player from moving. Well, he can move, but he'll have to pass through by a couple of players and they can knock him down if he tries to do anything. And due to the fact that this guy is near, this ghoul is covered by the big guy, I will not try to fight him. At least not with a werewolf. And since I already moved this character, I cannot use any actions anymore. So let's see, what are my options here? The most basic option is to try and get rid of the zombie behind the Death Knight and then move my werewolf after him so that the Death Knight can get an extra dice. So let's try that, see where it leads us. Due to the fact that the werewolf is a wild beast, he has a frenzy ability, which will allow him to follow his opponent and then injure him when he moves him. So this kind of worked for us.
I love adding my own sound effects.
So due to the fact that we have an extra teammate, yeah, we cannot attack this stuff. Well, we can, but it's not going to help us much. And I'm not going to try to move because my giant's dodging ability is non-existent, so my only option is to try to push this guy away. And thankfully I have a block ability, which allows me to take these types of dice without too much without too much trouble, as you just saw. Ordinarily, these skull yellow dice would mean automatic knockouts for both my characters, but since my my character has the block ability, he could avoid such an occurrence, and now we can attempt to knock out the second lineman. Let's push him right next to the werewolf, so if something happens, we have some reinforcements, as well as a werewolf that's willing to follow a moved opponent. And as you can see, the game has a turn timer, which is usually 3 minutes. So your best bet is to be careful of what you're doing. And this is something you don't want to see. Skull dice just means your character's going to get knocked out, and that's a turnover. Thankfully, I did most of my actions before I took this risky one. And now I only have one knocked out character. And the rest of the team is relatively safe. Stand firm, mate.
He is not moving.
I'm gonna get knocked out. Oh, crap. The stunt character will have to wait we'll have to wait until next turn before he can get up, which is a problem. But thankfully, we do have enough characters around to prevent this guy from moving.
It's gonna be hard to make him lose the ball.
Thankfully, the AI is not smart enough to attempt some more complicated maneuvers, such as injuring down players. And to be fair, there is a lot of risk with injuring a character. You have the more characters are around the set character, around the knocked out character, the better the chances of you injuring him. But there is also a big chance that a judge will throw you off the field when you do that. So bribing a judge or using some additional abilities behind the judge's back is usually advisable.
The attacker smells weakness.
And that's about it for the gameplay itself. Let's see, can I tell you anything more that's bound to be interesting? well, there are also the races of the game, which is basically the whole Warhammer universe at this point. There are lizardmen, there are Skaven, there are elves, there are night elves. Well, not night elves, dark elves, and there are also undead, as you saw. And every faction has a sub-faction of its own. For example, humans have Kislevite Circus, the Citizens of the Empire. Chaos has its Chaos United, which is Beastmen and several humanoid several Chaos Warriors. And then you have the Nurgle faction, the Blood God faction, so it's a very interesting mix. You even have halflings, which are slow, pudgy, and relatively useless, but if you know how to play them, they're devastating in the right hands. So every race brings something new and interesting to the table.
This is going to be decisive.
So even if you're not a fan, you can always create your own team and experiment a bit with what you design. But my personal recommendation for beginners mostly is try going with oh crap, I forgot this guy's here.
Player makes this, they should get a pay rise.
Yeah, I screwed up on this one. My basic advice is try going with races that are either very nimble so they can avoid that can dodge trip tackles like this,
The harder they
or
punch.
that have a good because of their agility, they have a good, decent movement set, which allows them to get away from harm as quickly as possible. That, or go with sturdy races like dwarves, who can be tackled, but the chances of them getting tackled are far lower than let's say elves. So every race specializes in something. The dwarves are small, sturdy, so they cannot be tackled as easily, while the elves are more nimble and they can avoid most of the attacks fairly quickly. And that also gives them a decent bonus when it comes to passing the ball around. With the undead, you have the advantage of a low risk of injury, and you can also replenish your character pool fairly quickly when you kill an opponent, for example. So a lot of interesting stuff can be done here. Okay.
Twinkle toes there.
So that's about covers it for the gameplay itself, the races, and well, since this is a demonstrational match, I'm gonna save and exit this match for the time being, so I can actually show you what the...
It seems that the coaches can also earn experience.
Yes,
a
they
little
really
more
don't
in
know what
terms
to
of
come up with next.
races. As you can see, I saved this. I saved my match so I can return to it later. But I wouldn't recommend that you abandon the matches, especially if you're winning. Depending on how well you perform during the season against other players, you get points, and that will grant you a placement within the league. And there are some leagues that will pay you out in real money if you're good enough for it. So yeah, if you're looking for esports, turn-based esports, this is literally the esport you can participate in. So yeah, as you can see, the Legendary Edition includes every race released for Blood Bowl 2, which is Wood Elves, Lizardmen, Norska, Undead, Necromancers, which is my team at the moment, Nurgle race, Tomb Kings, Chaos Dwarfs, Amazons, Vampires. So for the sake of demonstration, let's go with the Ogres. Let's go with Ogres. A very difficult team to play with, but with this you can actually create a ridiculous team and go for it. Go play with that, and you can also customize your characters for other matches.
The war drums thunder, and the Noblars swarm. An ogre team joins the circuit.
Yeah, as you can see, you have ogres in the majority, but don't think you're gonna win because of it. These guys are big, and tough to play with, because you have a 50-50 chance of them just staring up and doing nothing. So you'll mostly have to rely on the Gnoblars to win the day. The ogres are just there to be the meat shield for the actual movement, for the actual team. So once you create a team, you can spend some money to purchase additional characters, as well as purchase rerolls, medics, fanfactors, which will give you additional bonuses. You can customize the club a bit more and purchase a sponsor, which will give you either a monetary or a different type of a bonus. For example, my Necromancer team has a magical sponsor, so that gives us a ice or a lightning spell that will affect the enemy team quite a bit. You can view your statistics and match history within the club itself. I'm gonna delete this team because it was just here for demonstrations, but once your teammates, once you start winning matches and whatnot, you can upgrade your characters through the usage of dice rolls.
This
so depending
circle
on which
of happy serenity. Aren't they
so
a bunch
depending on
of
which
happy
dice roll you got, you can
I wouldn't
choose
like to use the
from
word
four
cult, Bob,
or
as that
4 or
has
5
certain
skill
tax
trees
exemption implications.
to power up your characters. So, for example, Chaos Team can mutate their players to give them additional specific abilities, and the 4 main skill trees will give you additional passive bonuses. For example, General Knowledge will improve your movement, your tackling abilities, while the Agility will improve your dodge and dexterity, such as grab the ball better, you can throw the ball better, or you can improve your strength, which will grant you regenerative abilities as well as frenzy attacks. Although, to be fair, it's usually, I'm wrong. Depending on every tree will also, every ability says for which skill tree it is. My apologies, but yes, as you can see, depending on the team you have and which race you're playing with, you can create very powerful units that can be either sold off for extra cash when you want to get rid of them, or you can sell off lower tier characters to earn some extra income and then purchase some better bonuses for the whole team. So that's my advice. Purchase.
Also on tonight's show,
purchase as much as you can of. Try to upgrade your characters as much as you can, and just focus on keep the linemen as meat shields, and give your blitzers and other specialized units the attention of the XP. Otherwise, the linemen can be useful as well, but they're cannon fodder, all things considered. And that's about covers it up, I think. I'm not sure if I forgot something, but yeah, this is Blood Bowl. In all due honesty, it's a fun game to play and view as well, because Jim and Bob are pretty entertaining when they're commentating over matches, and if you're playing or watching with friends, it's a fun game to just commentate over on your own. It can be frustrating because of the dice rolls, which can be fair or unfair depending on how lucky you get, and the leveling up system can be a bit annoying if you don't know how to apply it properly. So if you want to keep your better players leveled up, you'll have to use them more and do some questionable and risky actions in order to give them the experience they need. Otherwise, it's just a fun game which you can play against the computer or just play with friends in offline or online mode. And that's about it.
I'm
thank you very
looking
much for
forward to
watching.
these
My name
next
is
few
Bedomy,
matches.
and I'll hope to see you next time. Good night.